Hi there. My name is Val, and I have the pleasure today to talk to you about my friend, Tim Hamilton. Tim was indeed a very good friend of mine, and it's a pleasure to be able to talk about him for a few minutes. Let me tell you how it all began. In 1994, I was working at a clubhouse in Massachusetts in the United States, and there was a group of us, staff and members alike, that were in addiction recovery. And we were also in mental health recovery. And we didn't have a path to be able to talk about both the mental health and the addiction in a safe way that made us feel comfortable and engaged and just accepted. So we set on a path to find a way to find something like a 12-step that could meet our needs. And a friend from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, heard about Dual Recovery Anonymous. And so we reached out to the founder, or as Tim would always say, the finder, not the founder. And we got in touch with Tim Hamilton, and Tim came to the state of Massachusetts over the next few years to help us to understand what Dual Recovery Anonymous was and the benefits of dual recovery. He came the first couple of years and helped us to coordinate a conference in Massachusetts that probably 100 people came to. Some of them were people who were in dual recovery, and other people were staff of people helping people in recovery. There were some clinicians, some doctors, some nurses, people from all walks of life that wanted to better understand how to support either themselves or other people who were in dual recovery. And after a couple of years, Tim helped us to start a retreat, which still continues to this day. So nearly 30 years later, we're still having conferences and retreats because Tim taught us what Dual Recovery Anonymous was. He helped us to understand the importance of leadership, of growth, of service, that we couldn't do this alone, and that it was very important to him, and it's become extremely important to me in the state of Massachusetts to remember that we're not just a dual recovery group. We are a Dual Recovery Anonymous group. We use the 12 steps. The 12 steps of Dual Recovery Anonymous, as most of you know, were modeled after the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, which was where I became sober and learned to stop using drugs and alcohol. Excuse me, but it was when I found Dual Recovery Anonymous that I became well, because I could talk openly and I felt accepted. And that's what Tim was all about, treating people in an open way, accepting different pathways to wellness. Tim was probably one of the kindest, most gentle, soft-spoken men I ever met. Sometimes when he talked, I got pulled in because it was hard to hear him sometimes. He was just this gentle man that talked so softly. And I actually got up the courage to ask him to be my sponsor. Tim died in, I believe it was January of 2013, at the age of 63. And at his death, at the time of his death, I had had him as my sponsor for 16 years. It was a long distance relationship. He was in Kansas City and I was in Massachusetts. And occasionally we would talk and send emails and so forth. But having the founder of Dual Recovery Anonymous as my sponsor was like a dream come true. And I guess I didn't mention that I am a person in long-term dual recovery. I haven't felt the need to pick up a substance or go back into the hospital in 37 years. And I do credit the lessons and the teachings of Dual Recovery Anonymous to that success and to the gentle nature that Tim had, that he was able to pull me in to the teachings of Dual Recovery Anonymous, to really, like, we studied together. What does accepting differences mean? What does that mean? And what do the steps of Dual Recovery Anonymous really mean? How are they different from other 12-step fellowships? And I always felt that the steps in DRA were the most inclusive 12 steps that I ever experienced. And I think all 12 steps are wonderful, but I think the 12 steps of DRA are magical. And Tim brought those to life. Tim talked about the need to work the steps, to recognize the traditions, and to grow the DRA fellowship to the best of our ability. And I felt like when he talked to me about growing and developing DRA, I felt like he put me on a road that I've continued to travel since 1994. I was on a mission to help one meeting get started, help another meeting get started, help another meeting to get started, and on we went. And I'm very proud to say that the meeting that we started in Hopedale, Massachusetts in 1994 is still growing strong. We celebrated our 28th anniversary last year. And how spectacular that was to find some people who came to that, one of those first meetings 28 years ago, to come and celebrate our anniversary. You know, post-COVID a little bit, but still it was nice to be able to find some of the folks that were still around. Some had moved away, and we were able to have a nice celebration. I'm looking at some notes to make sure that I included the things that I wanted to include. There was one thing that I forgot, and that was before Tim's death, and I felt so honored. He emailed me a couple of pages from the manuscript for the big book that he was writing for Dual Recovery Anonymous. And he asked me to edit those pages. And I did edit those pages, and I sent them back to him. I don't know whatever happened to those pages. And I know that Tim was in the midst of writing the big book of Dual Recovery when he died. I don't know if that manuscript is still out there someplace. And I hope that someday someone can find that and dust it off, and we can get that big book written. And I think that really is what I wanted to say. Just the importance that Tim placed on service, on leadership, on growth. And it all began with one meeting, 29, 30 years ago almost, in Hopedale, Massachusetts. And in the state of Massachusetts, we have over 60 meetings now. And it's start one meeting, help some leaders to grow, start another meeting, help new leaders to grow, and on it began. And I feel so privileged to have this chance to talk today. So thank you very much for listening, and stay well.